Good afternoon. The meeting is called to order. This is a special meeting of the Education Outreach and Training Committee of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, City and County of San Francisco. I'm David Pilpel, the chair. Madam Clerk Administrator, roll call, please.
Yes. Member David?
Here.
David present. Member Highland?
Here.
Highland present. Member Oka?
Present.
Oka present. And Chair Pilpel.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. My intention, given the audience, is to take item 3 out of order, then depending on the appearance of Arts Commission, either 2 or 4. Without objection, let's proceed to item 3. Madam Clerk Administrator, if you'd call the item, please.
Item number 3, file number 12050, hearing to determine violation of a complaint filed by Ray Hartz Jr. against Angela Cavillo, Clerk of the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, so this is a hearing on that violation that the task force determined back in, one moment, November. By, at the time, oh, I'm sorry, wrong item, one moment. In April, by a 7-2 vote. So we, today, hearing on the outcome, we received a letter dated yesterday from the clerk of the board. And I'm just checking, Madam Clerk Administrator, did we receive anything from Mr. Hartz, the complainant, prior to the hearing?
I don't have, no, nothing further.
Okay. And we do have both parties here, so why don't we hear from Mr. Hartz, the complainant, first? We've already determined a violation, so if you can tell us, I hope you have seen the letter from the clerk of the board?
Yes, I have.
Yesterday? Okay. So you have up to 5 minutes. You don't need to take all that time unless you need it. If you can tell us your view of the status of this matter and what else we should do, if anything, on it.
Okay. Well, the status of the matter is I appeared before the Ethics Commission last night, and they heard the second complaint against the city librarian, Luis Herrera, and they found him not in violation because the Library Commission has since January been placing the 150-word summaries in the body of the minutes, and that was their reason for not finding him in violation for not having done it on the prior complaints. They did make it very clear on a couple of issues. One was they said that if they were to revert to the old thing of making it an addendum, they would consider that a willful violation going forward. They acknowledge the fact that the task force has made 6 orders of determination regarding this matter. They have sent an email to the district attorney, a letter to the city attorney, telling him that they disagreed with his position on the matter and why. The Ethics Commission was actually the first group to change the placement of the 150-word summaries and put them in the body of the minutes, but the Police Commission and the Arts Commission have also followed suit. Commissioner Rennie, in fact, was the most vocal on this, and he basically said that he felt that every city body should follow the guidance of the task force and place these statements in the body of the minutes as the task force has determined on numerous occasions. And basically his position was, and 2 other members of the Ethics Commission agreed with it, that if any of the bodies were to then go back and start to take them out of the minutes, they would consider that to be willful violation, because it's basically saying you're agreeing with it and then you're going back on what you said. And I think you're all aware that the task force, you may be aware, Compliance and Amendments Committee met just recently, and their discussion with Mr. St. Croix of the Ethics Commission was that they asked him whether or not the placement of the minutes was something that was in writing. He said no, and they said, we suggest you do that, which is their recommendation to the task force. And basically, so I think we're in a position now where it's very, very clear what the task force position is. Now, given the letter that Mr. Caldera can probably give it a better frame, but basically I read it saying, ain't going to do it. And saying that this body doesn't have the authority. I'm looking at Article 4, Policy Implementation of the Task Force, Section 6730, subsection C, where it says the task force shall advise the Board of Supervisors and provide information to other city departments on appropriate ways in which to implement this chapter. And the task force has done that on numerous occasions, and almost all of the city the 4 city bodies that I deal with most frequently have all complied and indicated that they intend to continue to comply. And again, the recommendation that the compliance and amendments is sending to the full task force is that they send letters to those bodies telling them that they recommend they place that in writing so that there's no confusion going forward. And so the only body we have so far that doesn't seem to want to comply with this is the clerk of the board. And I'll be honest with you, and this is my personal opinion, I'll clearly market that, is they do not want members of the public to be able to get anything into the minutes which they don't approve.
Thank you. Are there any parties to present facts and evidence in support of the complainant? Seeing none. City response. Mr. Caldera.
Hi. Rick Caldera, Legislative Deputy Director in the Clerk of the Board's office, here speaking on behalf of Angela Calvillo. Just had to run out of the board meeting, and I'll be running back in there shortly. We really don't have anything additional to add other than the letter that was submitted by Angela. And as I indicated at the hearing, the 67.16 is specific, that it states that it should be in the minutes. The addendum that we create with the 150-word summaries is in the minutes. It's not like you have to go to another document. You don't have to pull up something else. We indicate specifically where Mr. Hart spoke in the minutes, which page to find his additional information, which is following the signature line of the clerk of the board. And, as I indicated at the hearing, I've heard the addition of 3 words put into the code section 6716. It says should be included in the minutes, not in the body of the minutes. So as Angela Calvillo has indicated, they're in the minutes. That's it.
Thank you, and we may have questions in a moment. Are there any other parties to support or present facts and evidence in support of the city? Seeing none. Matters with the task force for discussion and questions. Member David?
I have a question for Mr. Hartz.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I'm just curious, from a very practical point of view, what's the difference between it being in the addendum and it being in the body of the minutes?
Okay. This is a point I made and repeated every case that I've brought before the task force, and that is the fact that taking something out of context and treating it like a footnote will inevitably result in some members reading the minutes not seeing it. And since it is out of context, in other words, it's being placed in a place outside where it actually occurred in the minutes, which is all I know about minutes is basically they're supposed to follow the flow of the proceedings. And if you take something out of the place where it would normally be, again, people may not understand the context. And so it is very, very important in all these bodies that it be in place. Otherwise, they will not understand it in relation to the other things that are in the minutes regarding the matter being discussed. Now, as far as the Board of Supervisors goes, the important thing is consistency. We can't have a city policy where every board and commission does things one way or another way or whatever. And that is one of the comments that the Ethics Commission made, is the fact that these things should be consistent and followed so that it isn't an arbitrary thing. And since this is a matter of political free speech, I think that's critical.
Any other questions? Member Oka?
I find
Use the mic. Use the mic.
I guess it's time for me to invest in a lapel mic or something. If in fact the Board of Supervisors does not wish to comply with this for reasons that I have yet to understand, it is in fact very, very discouraging and dismaying to me that the city governing body chooses not to do what they should do, both morally and legally. So I don't see any other reason than to put this publicly to them. And I don't know if it's appropriate for this committee to suggest enforcement. But that's the way I'm leaning.
Okay. We'll get to motions in a bit. We're good? Yeah. Hold on one second. Let me. We're good. Member Highland?
Good for now.
Okay. Back to Member
Mr.
David.
Caldera? I basically have almost the reverse question to you that I had to Mr. Hartz. You know, is there a certain complication or difficulty in putting the comments in the body of the minutes as opposed to as an addendum? Is it, you know, like what would be the reason to not do it that way?
Well, we have action minutes.
sorry?
We have action minutes.
Okay.
And we do indicate when Mr. Hart speaks, kind of generally what he talked about. And then when he provides us additional information, Angela includes it at the end with a little caveat just before his submission indicating that the following information was provided by a speaker pursuant to Admin Code Section 6716. The content is neither generated by nor subject to approval or verification by the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors. She puts this after her signature line in the minutes, the additional 150 words.
So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding, so it's a clarifying question, I apologize. So you're saying that the oral comments are put in the body of the minutes,
Generalized.
and then if there's an additional written 150 words or less, that is put at the addendum at the end.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So let me follow up for a second. And let me turn to Mr. Hartz for a second. Looking at the letter from the clerk of the board, this is really a dispute. Well, the dispute has already been resolved by the task force, but the concern is about whether the statement that you provided, for example, in this instance, appeared on page 625 of the minutes, which I presume are minutes for the entire year. It's 625 of the minutes of the year 2012, or on page 613. Is that what this boils down to?
No.
No.
If you look at page 615, I think it is, I haven't got my glasses here, hold on. 615, which is, I think, the third page of the response from the clerk of the board, look at public comment.
That's page 613.
613, okay. Look at public comment. If you read the Sunshine Ordinance, it says in there are specific things that the summary of public comment should include, and none of these include what those things are. Abdullah Magad expressed various concerns.
Okay.
So bottom line, what I'm saying is that the summaries they put into the action minutes are meaningless.
Okay.
Nobody in the public would have any idea what I talked about or would have any idea whether to go look at the 150-word summary at the end, because I supposedly just expressed concerns relating to government.
Okay. But that's not actually the subject of the complaint for which the task force found a violation. It was not about whether the summary of public comment was sufficient. It was about where the 150-word statement appears in the minutes.
Right. And I'm saying that what they put in is meaningless, and why I want my 150-word summary in that place is because what they put in about what I said is meaningless. So my public comment was censored. And the simple fact that they put it now, one other thing I'd like to address is they keep pointing to the Good Government Guide. If you read the first sentence after they actually quote the ordinance, and it says in the minutes, and the very next sentence of the Good Government Guide says, the summary is not part of the official minutes. They can't have it both ways. They can't say we're putting it as an addendum, which is part of the minutes, based on the Good Government Guide, when the Good Government Guide says explicitly that the summary is not part of the minutes. The only way it's going to be part of the minutes if it's in the body of the minutes, then there is no doubt.
Okay, well, there may be some reasonable dispute about how the Good Government Guide characterizes that section, but I would take some issue with your statement that the speech is somehow being censored. I don't believe it is. I believe that your speech is...
Read that sentence and tell me what I talked about.
If I can finish. I don't believe that your speech is censored. In fact, I believe it's captured, summarized in the 150-word statement.
Mr. Pelpel, I'd ask you to recuse yourself. You have no intention whatsoever of being impartial in this matter, in any matter. You side with the city in every single case, and I do not think you're fit to sit in that seat, and I do not think you're fit to hear this case, because you're arguing their side against me.
With all due respect, I was appointed to the task force and am chairing this committee, so thank you very much. Mr. Caldera, just a quick question. I'm not sure how relevant this is. On page 2 of the letter from Ms. Calvillo, there's reference to a different case, 13026, which it says is attached but was not attached to the copy of the letter that I got. Is that germane to this matter at all?
I believe it's a similar complaint that Mr. Hartz has submitted, and I defer to your clerk.
Okay, but that's not actually before us today in any event?
No. It was a request that came to us in relation to mediation. Is that?
May I answer that question?
I was asking Mr. Caldera.
He doesn't know the answer. I did.
Good. You'll have a moment when we get there. You were finishing?
No, that's it. I don't have anything.
Okay.
You and I are going to the Ethics Commission, Mr. Pelpel.
And by the way, I appreciate your summary of the meeting since I was not there last night. So I think I'm good. Member Highland, did I see a hand? No. Member David, did you have a follow-up? Oh, Mr. Hartz, did you want to respond? Oh, and actually, this is probably a good time, unless we have further questions, for clarification and rebuttal. So actually, Mr. Caldera was first on clarification and rebuttal. Okay, thanks. And Mr. Hartz, you can conclude. You have up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
The other case that was referenced is a case against the clerk of the board because of the very minutes that we just discussed a few minutes ago about the fact that the sentences that they put in do not in any way, shape, manner, or form meet the requirements of the ordinance. They are, in most cases, simply misunderstandable statements which no citizen could read and understand what the person spoke about. That's what the second filing is. Basically, nobody can answer this question. You know, Mr. St. Croix went before Compliance and Amendments, and they asked him the same question Mr. David asked Mr. Caldera. Why is it you're so resistant to putting this in? What difference does it make? And nobody has come up with any sort of a plausible answer, because the real answer is something they can't admit. We don't like what he has to say, and we don't want it in the minutes. That's why I started this fight 2.5, 3 years ago with the Library Commission, because they did not like us questioning the finances of the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. And when we did, first, the president of the Library Commission has been found and recommended for removal by the Ethics Commission. When I made another comment, Ms. Gomez filed a police report against me for a legitimate public comment. So this has been a long, hard road of 3 or 4 years where I have been saying, no, if a citizen of this country, of this city,
If
comes...
you could stick to the particular complaint item, that would be helpful.
Mr. Pilpel, I am, and you have no right whatsoever to tell me how to conduct my case.
Please continue.
No, this is a prejudice hearing. You are not holding it fairly. You are interrupting me. You are telling me what I can and cannot say, and I see no reason to participate in a hearing which is nothing but a farce. You're trying to put a patina of justice on this, and it's in no way justified for you to treat it the way it is.
Mr. Hartz, there's 4 of us up here. Can you repeat what you said at your...
But there is a chair who is running this thing, asking me questions, interrupting me, and telling me what I can and cannot talk about, and whether what I'm talking about is on the point.
Fair enough, but we're all going to make our determination based on what we hear, so just have patience with us. I wanted to ask you again, your summary of the meeting last night. What are the bodies that are complying going forward with this 150-page?
The Library Commission, the Ethics Commission, the Police Commission, and the Arts Commission have all done exactly as I've asked, which is I've given them my statements, and they have placed them in the body of the minutes where the comments occurred under the agenda item about which they occurred.
And the clerk of the board, and who else is not doing it? There's 2?
Right now, it's just the clerk of the board.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Hartz, I guess I'm having a hard time with getting back to the kind of pragmatic issue here, because I understand if there was not, so under the public comment on page 613, right, it says Ray Hartz expressed concerns relating to the government. I agree with you that doesn't mean anything. But then it says very clearly, see additional information submitted on page 625. So it seems to me that someone who is interested in hearing, what your comments are is directed directly to your comments on page 625. And so I'm kind of missing a little bit of if I'm missing 2 sides of it. One, I don't see why it would necessarily be difficult for the city to put the public comment right there, right under where it says that. Okay, so that's one side where I'm kind of okay. But on the other side, I'm also kind of anyone who is going to go through the agenda and read the public comment is clearly going to be pointed to in the agenda item where your public comment is. So, I personally don't see the argument that it's taken out of context as compelling, because to me it says right there, go to page 625, and then there's your 150-word statement. So it seems I'm not seeing the big the big injustice. I'm saying this is perhaps a small injustice, but you're talking about it on a much bigger scale, and I'm failing to grasp the larger picture as to what the problem is.
Mr. Hartz, maybe I can answer this for him. Member David, I'm not sure if you were at...
I was not.
Okay. In those meetings, we determined that not having the verbatim quote, but a summary, and then putting the 150-page summary at the end was, in effect, censure. We've already made that determination. We're already at that point. We've made that on several cases that are similar. And I think as the bastion of sunshine in this city, we have to stay consistent with that. And
if I may also add something, I read a lot, and that's why I read a lot of history. And in all the history books I read, there are footnotes. Do I immediately stop my reading and go back and look at the footnote? No. Or and I review a lot of government documents in committees and commissions that I attend, and very honestly, I have on many occasions missed something critical because it was placed as a footnote rather than in the body. And someone said, oh, but you didn't see this, and I went back and looked at it. Now, very directly, I'll tell you why it's important. The first attempt by the Ethics Commission to deal with this, they put the Roman numeral 1 at the end of of their summary, and it was a link. And if you click the link, you would go and find my comment, but you couldn't get back to the original document. And if you printed out the original document, the summary wasn't included. Now, yes, there is some argument that they have, in this case, changed that to a degree, but the bottom line is they are still putting something in which most people would read, and there would be absolutely no reason for many people reading what those summary, little one-line summaries say, to say, oh, I think I need to go look for this other thing. I don't see it.
And in this case, they're endnotes. They're not even footnotes. I mean, it
No, I hear you.
yeah. So
So are we allowed to ask Mr. Caldera more questions, or are we not supposed to?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Caldera, so,
I'm just sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, no, point of order. The speaker still has a minute and 22.
I will allow, once we're done with questions, I will allow Mr. Hartz to conclude his rebuttal and
yeah,
clarification.
I think we
So
jumped to a summary too quickly. I think there's a little bit
It's
more
fine.
discussion
If you
here.
have further questions, let's do that.
So, Mr. Caldera, I mean, like, I get, if you're including it in the addendum as it is now, what is the complication of putting it in the public comment section instead of in the addendum?
Because after Angela's signature is where she wants it. She is attesting to everything above her signature line, which is why it is included at the end. She indicates next to Mr. Hart's name where to find it. Like I said, it's not in a separate document. It's not in...
Right.
It's the same document. You don't have to click on a link and go to a different spot and never get back to the minutes. The minutes are the minutes. You open up those minutes and all of the information is listed there.
So let me ask you this. If under public comment there was a citing that said, the clerk of the board is not responsible for the accuracy of the 150-word summary.
Angela will not sign off on the minutes if there's information that she has not put above that signature line.
Okay.
Let me ask a
That's
question.
why
this
the
way.
information is listed as an addendum.
Okay.
She's attesting to that information.
And I'm not too familiar with your minutes. Do you typically summarize everything that's said in the meeting, or only that pertain to the cases? So if it's-
Everything. And if it's a specific case, individuals can certainly submit written documentation. Mr. Hartz has, on a number of cases, submitted documentation that actually go as part of the file, at a committee hearing. And even in committee hearing, we indicate, just as specific to Sunshine Ordinance, who spoke, what it, generally what it was about.
And so why wouldn't you treat this summary the same way?
This has to do with public comment, general public comment, not specific to a specific item, so there's not a specific file.
So that's the crux.
That it can go in.
But unfortunately to us, there is no crux. It's still sunshine.
And unfortunately to Angela Calvillo, the clerk of the board, she's not signing on to anything.
So even though
that
the
she has
Ethics
signed
Commission
in.
has decided that this is appropriate, you, as the clerk of the board, feel that it's not in your case.
And Angela Calvillo is under the impression that the Ethics Commission has not determined it in this case. I'm hearing that they've determined it in other cases, but we have not had our day in front of the Ethics Commission.
No, you won't. But I think Johnson and Qua said moving forward they would, if I'm not mistaken, they would comply with this. So maybe we need to find out the mechanism, how we make this more enforceable, or if it's for us to make it enforceable. I'm just discussing right here. But I think it might be helpful if we continue this to actually have Angela here to talk to, rather than you telling her what she will and won't do. I mean, just, as a point of order.
Well, okay. We'll get to that in a second. Unless there are further questions, I believe Mr. Hartz has a minute and change to conclude his rebuttal and clarification. Let's do that and then see if there's a motion.
I don't do these things lightly. I don't do them without a lot of research, and I've researched the First Amendment extensively. And the bottom line is the law in the state of California says that to limit free speech, you have to have a compelling state interest. In other words, there has to be a valued purpose to saying that this free speech should not be accurately represented. And the Constitution and the First Amendment have been interpreted by the United States Supreme Court to extend to representations of speech. If someone wants to speak before a public body and does not care how they are interpreted, that is their choice. But in this city, the law says and the task force has ruled on multiple occasions that if I do not, I can submit a 150-word summary, which shall be placed in the minutes, and they have ruled repeatedly that that means in the body of the minutes. That's, I think we're going over and over and over ground, and this is one of the big frustrations I've had. If this needs to go back to ethics, that's fine. But Ms. Calvillo is just taking the attitude that I don't have to do what I'm being asked to do, but I don't even have to give a reason why. I just have to say that's the way I want it.
Great, thanks. Okay, so now the matter is with the task force for a motion. If there's a motion, we'll take this up. Otherwise, if there's no further action, then the matter will be deemed concluded. Is there a motion?
I move that we forward this to the full task force with recommendations of enforcement. And frankly, Mr. Chairman, I find it very, very troubling because if I understand what we have ruled several times in the past on this, 150-word summary should be within the body of the public comment. I don't, with all due respect, Mr. Caldera, I don't see where that's a real big problem for the clerk of the board or anybody that's assisting that. Take, for instance, me, a person with a disability. Do you know how much extra time it takes for me to click on another link to get to somebody's statement? If it's right in the body of the minutes, then I don't have to do that. Why is it such a difficult thing for you or anybody to comply with our order? And then I'll finish my motion.
What I had so far is a motion to refer the matter back to the task force with a recommendation.
Of
Is that a
enforcement.
recommendation? Right, but I think we need to be more clear than that. Is it a recommendation to refer the matter to the Ethics Commission?
I think that would be the appropriate body to refer this to. And yes, I would like to see that happen.
Okay, is there anything else in the motion? I'm not suggesting you need more, but I think that's a fine motion.
Okay,
Okay.
that's it.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Highland. Discussion on the motion? All right.
I was just going to say, can we, and I'm sure the mechanics of this eludes me, but maybe the way to do is put the motion forward and let ethics deal with it, or if we could provide maybe the way that they could do a, I guess not a compromise, but the way we like to see it done is actually include public comment as quoted, as case comment is included, by the clerks. Provide the 150-page, 150-word summaries in the body underneath those comments with a disclaimer, and that way it alleviates any signing off on words that they can't vouch for. Do we want to get that specific, or do you want to keep it this general? I'm just throwing this out as a question to the group.
I'm not sure that I'm supporting the motion. I think that we would actually be better off communicating with the city attorney and seeking a clarification in the next edition of the Good Government Guide to reconcile whether the summary is part of the minutes or is not part of the minutes, because I think there is some disconnect there. As I say, I think it's a fine motion that accomplishes its intent. I just happen to believe differently that to the extent that the statement is in the minutes and is in the minutes, is not a separate linked document. It's actually in the minutes. It's just on a different page, just as other matters continue from page to page in the minutes. That the practice is acceptable. So that's why I'm not inclined to support the motion.
No, I wasn't really asking
where it
whether
goes.
you're inclined to support it. I'm asking the mechanics and leaning on your expertise there. So
Okay.
let me restate the question.
Sure.
My inclination is, why waste more, task force time in referring this back? Do we not have the authority to refer this straight to ethics from our group?
We do not.
We do not. Well, that answers that. But again, this is one of the frustrating things on this task force is we keep hashing things over again and again.
Absolutely.
And this is going to take up the spot of another case that's been waiting. What is the strongest move we can do at this point? I'll ask you that. I'm not asking what that move
Right.
should be.
No,
What
the
is it?
strongest move that we could do is to refer the matter to ethics with a finding of a willful violation and with any other specific recommendation we'd want to make, and perhaps a referral to other agencies, but they're less likely to enforce the matter. Ethics is the most likely, but that still may not yield a satisfactory result. But that really is the strongest action that's open to the full task
I think it'd be
force.
quite interesting to watch ethics deny this, since that they've already seems to have suggested they're going along with it. So I think that might be a good move to get this through. And I think this is, and not to be negative, Chair Pilpel, but we're on the Sunshine Task Force, and I think we need to always advance Sunshine, not go backwards. And that's the sense I'm getting from you on this one. You're sticking to the letter of the law. But these clearly these kind of things should be available in the right place at the right time, quoted accurately to members of the public. I mean, if we don't uphold this, who will?
I just want to have one clarifying question, because
Go ahead,
I
and
think
then I can
that
comment.
Chair Pilpel might have misspoke by accident. We cannot refer this directly, meaning we, the
This
education,
committee.
right? We can refer it to the full task force with a recommendation to ethics. I just wanted to.
I was just trying to save that step and just move
Right.
along, that's all, yeah.
And I would just say, one can respectfully disagree about this. I do happen to feel very strongly about public comment and open government. However, I think that we need to, in some cases, balance competing priorities. The amount of time that we spend and ethics would spend on this, if referred, compared to other matters that are before the task force now, or could be in terms of education, outreach, and training, or other issues. There are only so many hours in the day. If the public comment weren't being summarized, if the 150-word or not to exceed 150-word statements weren't being included anywhere in the minutes, I would take issue with that. I just think that it is reasonably being complied with, albeit in a manner that some members of the task force find objectionable.
I'm sorry, I disagree with that. The fact that we as commissioners and the public have to sit here and listen to that public comment, it shouldn't bottleneck at one clerk or one recorder not being able to get it all down, or not wanting to get it all down, or not wanting to sign off on getting it all down, or not wanting to put 150-word summaries at that spot. We're all here, we're all listening to it. It is public speech, it's free speech. So to throw in an admin angle of why it shouldn't be included, I don't buy it. Sorry.
Okay, I wasn't taking issue with that.
Well, that's how it sounded.
I was talking about priorities, not the
Well-
administrative support of the board in terms of creating minutes.
All right, I took it from an admin perspective. I'm like, if they can't do it, then we have to get a better recorder that can capture that information, or is willing to put it, or is willing not to let their ego get in the way of not signing off on it. Sorry, I'm losing patience with this, because we've done this so many times, and it's coming back at us in our own government saying they're not interested in following it. So, excuse my disgust at this point, but I'll stop there.
It's fair. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Is there any public comment from non-parties? Seeing none. Then I think it's time for a vote. I'll close public comment. I hate using the thing. But public comment is closed. And on the motion, Madam Clerk Administrator, let's take a roll call vote.
Member David?
No.
David, no. Member Highland?
Aye.
Highland, aye. Member Oka?
Aye.
Oka, aye. And Chair Pilpel?
No?
Chair Pilpel, no. You have 2 ayes and 2 noes.
Should have.
So the motion fails. Is there any other motion on the matter?
What options do we have? A lesser motion that you guys might be interested in?
Personally, I'm satisfied with this outcome, and I'm inclined to let the matter conclude. But
What about you, Member David?
Member David?
It's what you wanted.
I mean, basically, we're having, they're just telling us, no, we're not going to comply. It kind of neuters us as a task force. That's why I'm supporting Member Oka's.
I mean, I tend to agree with the argument that Chair Pilpel put forward, that I'm not convinced that the addendum is not a part of the actual minutes. And so, in an ideal world, I liked your compromise of having, the quote of, putting it in with public comment with a disclaimer that, that the clerk is not responsible for those words. I think that in an ideal world would be a reasonable compromise, but I'm not willing to make a recommendation for something to ethics as an ethics violation based on that. I mean, if we as a task force wanted to write a letter and say that we think that this would be a good practice and that we recommend that practice, I would certainly support that. But I'm not going to support a referring something to ethics based on, on there. That's my rationale.
Yeah, as I said before, I wish you'd been in the thick of it when you heard us going through these cases. You would have seen the arguments presented to and for that. And I appreciate your, cautionary approach. Absent of those experiences, that might be a compromise. But again, I mean, part of what we're doing here at Education Outreach is we're teaching, showing how to get things done and, get both parties to agree to something. Maybe in this case, that's all we've got. I'm happy to propose a motion to that effect.
So how about this? I will propose a motion that we write a letter to the clerk of the board recommending that she include the written statement under the
place where it comes.
public comment.
I think you should include all 150-page.
150 words.
150-word summaries as they appear in the hearings.
Right, yeah, in public comment with the, what was the word you used?
Disclaimer.
With the disclaimer that she is not responsible.
Not certifying the content.
Right, not certifying the public comment. And I would make a motion that we could, I would support a motion to write that letter.
I think if that's all we have at this point, if we do that, at least we're documenting that we're trying to work with them. And in the future, if this case comes up again or in a different way, we've at least shown that we've tried to work with them through EO and TC to have them comply. I would support that motion.
Okay, so
Shall we take that as a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. So I'm hearing a motion that we recommend that the task force, so this would not be a committee final action, but a recommendation to the full task force to send a letter to the clerk of the board urging that the 150-word statements be included in the body of the minutes
Can we,
with the disclaimer.
why can't we, can we not just send that letter from us directly instead of having to, again, throw it back in front of the task force and have them vote on it? We can?
I would like the motion to be from the education outreach so
Agreed.
that we don't have to send it back to the full task force. And are you, Ms. Osberg, are you saying that we can do that?
As a committee, education, outreach, and training, you may write a letter from this committee to the clerk of the board stating that.
Perfect.
I think that's more appropriate. So that's the motion.
I'm just thinking about whether that's appropriate for the committee. I mean, my general view is that we can send procedural letters, but letters that express the view of the task force on a matter should come from the full task force and not from a committee. So I'm weighing.
Well, if you just word the letter, based on
Right.
this case, since this is, in our purview as the committee, we'd like to keep working with you, and this is our recommendation. It's very clear it's coming from this committee and not the task force. And hopefully that'll be, treated seriously from the clerk of the board.
Okay. All right. I suppose I get that. So, all right. So then the restated motion is to send a letter from this committee, not from the full task force, to the clerk of the board, urging that the 150-word statements be included in the body of the minutes with the appropriate disclaimer language. That's the.
Including public comment and the regular case. In other words, the whole.
That the 150-word statements where they're now included in the minutes be included at the appropriate at that location. Okay, I can figure that. Okay, so that's the restated motion made by Member David, seconded by Member Highland. We've already taken public comment. Is there any further discussion at the committee? Seeing none, Madam Clerk Administrator, let's take a roll call on that.
Member David?
Aye.
David, aye. Member Highland?
Aye.
Highland, aye. Member Oka?
Aye.
Oka, aye. And Chair Pilpel?
No.
No. You have 3 ayes, 1 no.
Okay, so that motion passes. I will nevertheless draft and arrange to send that letter to the clerk of the board. Thank you, Mr. Caldera. Okay, so we will send that letter. Otherwise, shall we deem, I think we will deem this matter concluded after that letter is sent. Fair enough?
What if
Yeah.
they do nothing?
Well, this can lead to further complaints and further discussion. I just don't.
All right.
I'm trying to conclude these
Yep.
items so that they don't continue to hang.
All right.
Trying to cover it up.
The substantive issue isn't going away, and we can discuss that in a greater context. But as to this individual complaint,
And I think the wording of the letter should include, we think you should comply with the order of termination. In order to have that happen, we're suggesting this structure.
okay.
But I want to get in the letter that we disagree that they think that they don't have to do this.
Understood. Okay, let me work on that without consulting with members David or Oka. Let me work on a draft and have Andrea. So we'll try to
Okay.
consult on that. Okay, so we'll send the letter. Otherwise, the matter will be concluded. Okay, so that's item 3. Thank you all very much. Let's go back to item 2 for a moment and deal with that.
Item number 2, file number 12013, hearing to determine violation of complaint filed by William Clark against Howard Lazar Arts Commission.
Okay, so we have neither party here. We have a request for continuance. I have no objection to that continuance. I would like to get from the Arts Commission a summary of their intentions going forward. I think we have seen, in an email dated May 14th from the clerks to Mr. DeCaney with copies to various folks. There are 6 or 7 points that they requested and the Arts Commission's response, but I'm looking for a document that summarizes in a more coherent way what the Arts Commission intends to do going forward. So if we can request that from the Arts Commission for the next meeting, then I would have no problem with the continuance.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
on this, how long, I'm not clear on why the Arts Commission is asking for the continuance.
The Arts Commission was not. The clerks were asking for a continuance.
Why?
Said personal reasons.
Due to personal reasons, and that was sent in this afternoon at 1:10.
Got an email to that effect. Yeah.
And in fact, neither side are here right now. So, okay, so if we can make that request to the Arts Commission by email and include that in the file, that would be great. I think we need a motion to continue. Is there such a motion?
Motion to continue?
And a second?
Second.
Motion to continue from Member David, seconded by Member Oka, to continue to the next meeting. Is there public comment? Seeing none, can we take that motion without objection? Without objection, motion passed. Thank you, and we will communicate with the Arts Commission with a copy to the clerks. Next item, item 4, please.
Item number 4, Senate Budget Act 2013, General Omnibus Trailer Bill, AB 76, and its effect on San Francisco implementation of the California Records Act and San Francisco Sunshine Ordinance.
Thank you. So this actually, the caption should have been a little different. It should have read State Budget Act of 2013, General Omnibus Trailer Bill, or General Government Omnibus Trailer Bill, and its effect on San Francisco's implementation of the California Public Records Act and San Francisco Sunshine Ordinance. So at the time I was putting this agenda together last week, this was very big in the news. You've got many pages of documents in the packet. I hope people spent a little time looking at that. Since then, there's been a lot more written in the press, and apparently the legislature has changed their view and is at least restoring or not making the mandate optional for this year, and is considering a constitutional amendment to continue the mandate but make the cost a cost of local government and not a cost borne by state government. At the time, again, last week, putting this together, that was not at all obvious, and it seemed like there might be some significant danger either in San Francisco or more so for other agencies not subject to the Sunshine Ordinance, that they would have compliance with the Public Records Act be optional, which is why I put this on here. So my intention here was to actually take this opportunity, regardless of the outcome in Sacramento, to prepare another letter to send to all city departments, post on the website, and actually also send to other agencies in the city that are subject to the Public Records Act, essentially expressing our view, or the view of the full task force, that the Public Records Act requirements should be adhered to, and that in particular in San Francisco we would expect continued compliance with the Sunshine Ordinance, the 10-day requirement for responding to requests, and the other substantive provisions, et cetera, et cetera. I have not drafted that on paper. I have done a few versions in my head, So if you want to read version 2 and version 3, you have to go to a certain part of my brain for that. But it is my hope that we would recommend such a letter to the full task force, because that would be stating the view of the full task force and not just this committee. So that was where I was going with this, but I'm open to other actions or no action depending on the views of the members. So let's have some discussion and then see if there's public comment.
This is kind of along the lines of the letter that we sent out last month, wasn't it?
Not the letter to Supervisor Campos. Was there a different letter?
There was a different letter to. Hold on one second. Perhaps.
I'm sorry. Member Highland, you're referring to a letter that went out that was suggested, recommended by
Member
Member
Nee.
Nee.
Yes, that one.
I never saw that letter. Did that letter go? Was there a letter?
There was a letter. It was a press release and a letter.
I've not seen that letter. That letter would aid me greatly.
Oh, I thought
How did that letter go and I never saw it?
we discussed it.
Right.
You were present at the meeting.
We agreed to send it, but I've not seen that letter. There was no letter.
I think
there
we
was a
saw-
letter discussed at the meeting. If there was a letter that was sent after the meeting.
I think we saw the draft. That's what I'm referring to. But did that letter ever go?
I'm sorry. Yes, the letter went to press release to 3 local community papers, and then also to the governor, those public officials that were stated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on the website.
Okay.
Okay, I need a copy of that letter. I need a copy of that letter as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I'm
I guess my point is that letter was sort of on point with this, what you're proposing.
okay. Well,
I think.
I don't have benefit of that letter, so I'm kind of in a vacuum on that.
Okay. I didn't think I'd ever hear you say those words.
Although it's obvious.
Okay. Well,
Let me see if I can find
I
it.
will assume that letter did not go to the same audience that I was thinking about. So perhaps it's somewhat duplicative in content, or maybe somewhat, but
No,
it's not
I think
duplicative in
why not
audience.
send another one anyway? I mean, no, we should make our voices heard. But I just, I'll get a copy of that to you
Great.
here in a second.
Okay. Fantastic. Further discussion. Member David?
Going to say that I think that we should table this until you have a full reading of the letter that already went out. That maybe
Well,
it seems silly to me to do another letter for the sake of doing another letter.
and that's not the intent. If that letter did not go to city departments and the public, then I think there's still some value to it. And again, it's a different audience. But Member Oka, did you have some view on the matter?
No.
Okay.
There it is.
Why don't we see if there's public comment and then see where we go with this? Is there public comment on the matter?
And I have 3 minutes.
Yes, go ahead.
If the administrator can let me know if I have 1 minute, please. Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. I think it's blatantly obvious whose agenda item this is, and who is pushing the agenda item, and who wants to write the letter, and who wants to write the letter for whose benefit, which is that person's benefit. I have real questions about 1 minute worrying about the fact that cases, and I would appreciate it if you would not have private conversations while a member of the public is speaking. That's just rude. But that's what your intention was, wasn't it?
Go ahead. Continue.
I continually hear people saying we have this backlog of cases, this has to wait, it has to wait, and I know from experience that's true. I've got a case regarding public records that has gone on for 2 years, and the city librarian has withheld those records for 2 years. So my question is, what is this item on the agenda for, and whose purpose is being served by it being on here, when it's obvious that none of you are familiar with it, and there's nothing really to look at, and there's questions about whether this has already been completed in another venue? And my real question is, whose purpose is this body supposed to serve? Is it to serve the public? And if it's to serve the public, then why are individuals allowed to use this forum for their own benefit, which is how I view this. This is a state matter, and if the Sunshine Task Force wants to talk about it, that's fine. They have apparently already done that, and certain members of this body are not familiar with that, and that has caused this dissension. But basically what we've ended up with here is a discussion about much of nothing, which is going to end up with little result. And if you're worried about spending your time getting cases solved, I would suggest you do stuff to get cases resolved rather than chase these chimera.
Thanks. So I did, in the meantime, see a draft of the letter, but I still haven't seen a final. So I guess I still need to see a final. I think that there's still some value in this. That, of course, could change between now and the full task force meeting. But I would like an opportunity to draft a letter and bring it before the full task force with recommendation from this committee. So I'm looking for a motion to that effect. And then we can deal with the matter at the full task force, depending on where we're at that point.
I second. Or was that the motion?
I think you're making a motion, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think this provide a draft of this to the full task force, and we can. It should come from the full task force. I agree with that part.
Okay, and I will draft that, and we will see where we go with it at that point, and we may tweak it there or not send it. We'll see. But I need a second on this.
Second.
Second by Member David. Okay. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, can we take this motion without objection?
Want to go back to public comment?
We already did do. I'm sorry.
You have a motion on the floor. I'm sorry. You didn't have a motion on the floor?
No, but we took public comment on the matter, and I'm sorry, I forgot to close public comment. So we've taken public comment on the item. So back on the motion, again, we can take this without objection. And that's passed. I will draft that letter as well. That will not go out from the committee, but that'll be on the agenda for the full task force at the July meeting. That was all I had on item 4. Thank you all very much. Item 5.
Public comment?
Is there any general public comment? 3 minutes.
And if the administrator could let me know when I have 1 minute, please. My apologies to members David, Highland, and Oka. I lost my temper for the simple fact that I really do perceive that the chair of this committee is totally on the side of the city and actually argues in their favor rather than trying to be, or at least pretend to be, impartial. He can object to that, but I think he has a well-known history and among the open government advocates in this city as being someone who is a city hall resident with all the intention of trying to get himself ingratiated with the city. Now, one of the big problems I've had with a lot of these committees is the fact that you go through the process of having a hearing before the full task force. They issue an order of determination, and then you come here and the members of the subcommittees want to re-argue the initial issue. And that is not appropriate. It was settled by the task force. And sending an order to someone, which they then refuse to comply with, and then suggesting that sending a letter saying pretty please with ice cream on top is going to make some sort of a difference is, I think, a bit ludicrous. Now, again, I apologize to Mr. Highland and Mr. David and Mr. Oka. I really do not feel that this was anything but something you were maneuvered into. And I am surprised that you will allow yourselves to be played like puppets. Because I believe, and that is my opinion strictly, that that's exactly what you're being having done to you. You're being led by someone who has already decided what the outcomes will be, like the last item. he wants a letter, and he's going to argue with you to get that letter. And he's going to do what he needs to wear you down until he gets that letter. And I do intend to file an ethics complaint against him because I see no purpose in filing it with the full task force, because I think he has shown in this particular case that he is totally unable to be impartial in holding hearings. He just can't do it. He is too worried about ingratiating himself with members of city government.
Thank you. We're on item 5, general public comment. Is there any further public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Came to visit. It's a public meeting. Item 6.
Item number 6, approval of minutes from the May 10, 2012 regular meeting.
I have some non-substantive edits that I think make the minutes read better. This was a meeting of the prior task force. I think item 3 accurately reflects that I was present for that meeting as a member of the public. But anyway, there's that. So I'm looking for a motion to approve with those edits. Motion from Member Oka, seconded by?
Second.
By Member David. That's to approve with the changes that are non-substantive. Is there any public comment on the motion? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Can we take that motion without objection? Without objection. That motion is passed. We're on to item 7.
And, I'm sorry, item number 7, announcements, comments, questions, future agenda items.
I have some announcements, but go ahead, Member David.
I just want to recognize that Mr. St. Croix is in the audience. I'm just curious if there was anything he wanted to address the outreach subcommittee on, or was he just visiting? Okay, very good.
Okay, so we have, thank you, we have still several items that were referred by the full task force. I'm trying to clear through those as much as possible. There was an item 11099, I believe, Jason Grant Garza versus Department of Public Health, where there was a violation of 21E found. There was no order written there. That was just kind of left hanging, so we're trying to get an order written and hold a hearing. The intention there is to just get public health to understand their 21E requirement to show up at hearings. So I would like to schedule that as soon as possible. We also have an anonymous versus the planning department, I believe 11068. There was a request from anonymous to essentially continue all of those matters. I don't think that the hearing at this committee necessarily requires anonymous's presence. It's merely to determine what the planning department has done to change their procedures as a result of that particular case. So I'd also like to hear that as soon as possible. And we have the Arts Commission item that was continued. That's 12013, and I forget the case number on the local homeless coordinating board, but that was also referred here, and I think the order has not been written on that yet, but it's pending. So those are at least 4 files that are here. I'm going to try to go to the next meeting, the local homeless coordinating board, and see what's happening over there, so that might inform how we deal with the item. But that's just kind of the basket of things from the past that I still want to work through. I would like us all to think about some more proactive items, recommendations to other departments, other ways to perhaps guide implementation of the ordinance. There are a number of areas that we could look at there. We had a discussion back in December about that. We can renew that discussion again, which I'm looking forward to. As I say, I would really like to clear through all that past baggage first. Do other members have thoughts on future agenda items? We're good with that? Okay. Bruce? Okay. And just last, in terms of scheduling, we did change our regular meeting date starting in August to the second Monday in this room at 3 o'clock. We don't have a date for July. I will coordinate with Member Highland about his availability for that. I would like us to meet in July and get through as much of that as we can.
July 3rd's available.
Apparently. Funny guy, that Todd David. Yeah. And also for October and November, the second Monday conflicts with city holidays, so we're going to need to move those dates. So it turns out the second Monday is a great idea in theory, except that it's had problems. So the second Monday in October is Columbus Day, and in November is Veterans Day.
Does the city observe both of those?
It does, for both Columbus and the veterans. Go figure. So that's what I'm up to in terms of scheduling, and as I say, I want to bring that proactive agenda to bear as
Well, in the interests of dates, my availability is the 1st and the 8th, as I've said. So
in July.
yeah.
Okay.
So if we're going to announce that, we should do that quickly to give members the
Okay.
public.
We'll talk about that and figure that out.
That hasn't changed. That's been the same.
Okay. And we wish you well on your voyage and safe return and all that. Okay. Is there anything further on item 7? Is there any public comment on item 7? Madam Clerk Administrator, did you have anything for us under item 7? Okay. That's all the business before us. Seeing nothing else, we are adjourned at 4:17 without objection. Thank you. Okay.
Yep.
Talk to you soon.
See you in July.